What's going on, people? Welcome to the Central Stand. This episode is brought to you by Re-Inspire Printing and Weekend Defender. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the stand, and hit the bell button to be notified of future content. We are back. It's only episode 3 and so much has changed. Firstly, I would like to introduce our new elements to the Central Stand. We've got, to my right, is Ben Thomas from, is it Ben Goes Football? Ben Does Football?
Ben Goes Football, yeah.
Ben Goes Football. And to my left, we've got Myles Evans, good friend of mine. You might have seen him on the Central Club. Lifelong City fan and someone who's, you know, you've been wanting to get involved in this since day one.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I've been busting to get involved with you, and we've had many a chat over it on me. So yeah, glad to get down here with you, mate.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. And Ben, of course, you know, we've had a few meetings, and obviously you wanted to get involved in the stand. Obviously, you're a very busy guy anyway with university and stuff. You've got your own channel, which, if anyone hasn't seen, go and follow him on TikTok. You want any other socials with it? Or
YouTube as well. I do it on YouTube. TikTok mainly is.
Of course, you've got your boxing one as well as
yeah, and I do a bit of boxing as well. Keep myself busy, but yeah, glad
so,
to be down here.
So Ben's doing sports journalism. So when he makes it to the big time, we're hoping to have the inside scoop, and he'll still be part of the Central Stand. But yeah, no, thank you for coming, boys. I'm really excited to get in for today. I know a lot of people have been waiting for some content off us. League One is upon us, boys.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, to be fair. It feels like, even though you don't want to get relegated as a football club, no one ever wants to see that happen, but it feels like the right opportunity now to hit the sort of refresh button, have a fresh start. And we've seen plenty of other clubs go through it before. Like, there's bigger clubs than us that have been stuck in League One, but this feels, if you're ever going to have an opportunity to press that reset button and start to build a bit of momentum as a football club, this season is going to be the one.
Yeah, I totally agree. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, definitely, mate. You know, you hear all these buzzwords in football, the reset and rebuild and things like that, but we've been sort of crying out for it as a fan base for, you know, many a year now. And okay, it's come at the cost of us dropping down a league, but I think, you know, we've got to be filled. Now we're in the position we're in, we got to be filled with optimism going into the season, because, you know, at the end of the day, we got to get right behind our team and, you know, see what this season brings. Really, it's I think there's so many positives to it, even though it's such a negative thing to happen, as Ben said, to get relegated. No one wants that for your team, but we do get a chance now to reset, as you said, and, you know, let's see how we can adjust.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's funny, I was having a conversation with Dave Parker from the foundation yesterday about last season and stuff, and how, you know, negative it was as a fan base. And that is one thing that we've had a conversation about, that we are really going to try our best to, you know, of course we're going to critique the team when they play poorly, but I just feel like, you know, now more than ever, we really need to have, you know, high hopes, optimism, and try and create a buzz around the club. Like, I know there's other channels out there who are doing the same thing. We, as a fan base, not just as a YouTube channel, as a fan base, we really need to be positive. And the one thing that Dave Parker did say on reflection of last season, when you look at the games, apart from the 7-0 thrashing, apart from the Burnley game, you know, I think we were very, very unlucky in a lot of games. You know, you look at the Luton.
Oh, there's so many games. You lose count of games. Like, you know, there's games you were watching there where, from my point of view, like we've had chats about it, and countless chats about it. But there's so many games where you're watching and you're thinking, for periods of the game, it's like you're on opposite ends of the table. You're watching one game, and we're having a right go at teams, and we're thinking, well, why haven't we done this against teams that are around us, in and around us in the table? We're doing it against like top sides, or, you know, big sides, and it's just we were just like a little bounce of the ball here, a little ricochet there, and it doesn't quite come off. So instead of turning those draws into wins, and then we've had, you know, games where we could have snatched a draw, we've had losses. So we just, obviously the proof's in the pudding. We didn't accumulate enough points throughout the season, and that's just where we found ourselves. We sort of it felt like we walked into the position rather than being down there all year and getting hammered, getting battered off the pitch.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the case, to be honest. I don't know if it's rose-tinted glasses myself,
You
trying to...
you
trying
do
be
tend to have rose-tinted
I do,
glasses.
mate. I do, mate. Yeah. Try and have a bit of a positive spin on it, but...
I think for the first half of the season, I never had any thought of relegation.
No,
until,
never entered
until
my
the
head at all.
back end. But
Never entered my head.
I'm very much of the opinion of the table doesn't lie. By
No,
the
of
time you
course
get
not.
to the end of it, we
No.
finished
It's as
dead
simple as
bottom,
Yeah.
and we deserve to off.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just. I don't think it was over the course of that 9 months and that one season.
No.
It's been coming for probably 3 or 4
Multiple
years.
seasons,
Yeah.
And realistically, we should have been relegated the year before that when Reading went down,
Yeah.
because if they didn't have a points deduction, then we go
Would've-
down instead of them. So
Yeah.
it was off-field situations that kept us up that
Yeah.
season anyway. But
By the skin of our teeth.
But do you
really, wasn't
think, from the games that we did chuck away, or they were silly mistakes, or, it was just sheer luck from, like it was just our destiny, we're going down this season. Looking into this season, with some of the quality we do have, we should be performing really, really well on the standards of some of the performances we did put in, which were positive last season.
yeah, there's no doubt. I think as a football club and a fan base, you should have an expectation this season that we are one of the biggest clubs in this league now.
Yeah.
And we should be competing, but that doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
correlate to competing and doing well. Like I said earlier, there's plenty of clubs bigger than Cardiff that have been stuck
Yeah.
in League One for a
Yeah.
long time, and we've got the capability of being one of those clubs if they don't get stuff right.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's the perfect opportunity to put things in place where this season can be really enjoyable. This can be where you kick on now, and we've seen other clubs do it. They, like, you see teams like Ipswich as well. They have one good, probably the best season that anyone, and they finished second, but the best season you'd see from someone in League One and went straight to the Premier League. But that's from a bit of planning, a bit of organisation, building.
Of course, yeah. And I totally agree. Like you look at the quality we have. You could say some teams, bigger clubs, you could say, with more history than us, who have probably been relegated and stayed down there longer. Probably when they were relegated at that time, didn't have a stronger squad that we have.
No.
I kept looking at our squad last year, thinking like we've got a good squad here, and I think with the quality we do have, like Salek should be bagging 20 goals this season.
Yeah.
And the players we got should be, because there is a big gap. I don't know how you feel about this, but speaking to people as well, I feel League One to Championship is a big drop in quality. Like I think we talk about the Premier League step up, which is obviously the biggest step up from the Championship, but I think League One to Championship is a big step as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of Championship clubs that have got near enough Premier League money now, because teams that are coming down are bouncing. Well, how often have we seen over the last few years that teams are getting promoted? I know they're coming straight back down.
You got a group of yo-yo clubs, haven't you? Really, like your Norwich, West Brom, teams like that.
Well, not anymore,
but they tend to go up and down, like you said. They've got that sort of Premiership core of players. But those were the teams where I felt like last year they were the teams we seemed to perform against. Like we played like, I think it was Watford at home the one game, and it's like, you're watching moments in the game. I know it's not one-on moments, but you're watching and you're thinking, who's what end of the table? But yeah, who's like 17th player and who's, fighting to get into the playoffs. It was like, and going back to your point there, like the squad we had last year, and pretty much the core of the squad we've got now, it was one of the better squads we've had, man for man, and like strength in depth that we've had for a while. Whereas in years gone by, one or two players had dropped out, and we thought, oh shit, what are we going to do if so-and-so gets injured, and so-and-so does get injured, and then what we're left with egg on our face. Whereas last year we had multiple options. You didn't really know what side we were going to have from one game to the next, it felt like a strength. But then, I don't know, as you said, the table didn't lie. But I think there's a lot of reasons for us to be positive going into the season, for sure. A lot of reasons for us to be positive.
Many of you seen the clip? I think it's on Mansfield's TikTok, and it's like who you looking forward to play? What's your fixture for next year? And I'd say out of 11 of the players, at least 6 of them Cardiff away. People are going to want to come to play, and they're going to want to show up, because, like you said, we are probably one of the biggest clubs in that league. it sure is going to be exciting. Don't you agree?
Yeah,
for sure.
It goes both ways then, doesn't it? Because you become sort of one of those big scalps that everyone wants to take a win against.
They had to be shot at, didn't they? They had to be shot
exactly.
at in a way.
In a way, I was like, hang on a minute, these
They bust in. They bust in for us.
We really need to, no nonsense. Like, we need to, and there's no reason why we can't just come straight back up.
Yeah, there's no reason. And like, I know we've only seen little bits and bobs. Me and Ben were chatting about it earlier on. All right, the manager's only had like a week and a half with the players, but you can see
from what I've seen.
What you can see and what he's saying, it's like he's trying to build that sort of culture within the team, and that he wants to see an identity, a Cardiff City way of playing, putting our marker down on teams so that we're implementing our style on a game, implementing our will onto a game. So I'm hoping that the Cardiff City Stadium is not just an excitable trip for those away fans and away teams. It's more of it becomes a bit of I know it's a cliche, but it becomes more of a fortress for us. Because I think in years gone by, I think it seemed like teams have enjoyed coming to play there, and they've really stepped up and really taken the occasion. Whereas we want to just be playing teams off the park, really,
But I think if we are playing teams off the park and we are winning those first few games, it's very fickle down there. It will be bouncing, and it just shows how poor we have played. The fact that we have to rely on the fan base to
get us
be that 12th man sort of thing.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because when you go through a season like last year where you didn't have much to shout about,
shout at.
Plenty to shout at.
It is difficult for the fan base to get behind the players, but I think it's just as hard as it is to say a case this season where you've just got to back them. You've got to. Every time we've had a good season where we've done really well and pushed playoffs or got promoted, our home form has been one of our key strengths, and that stadium, when it's rocking, is really good. So that is one of the main factors they need to get right this season, because like you said, you don't want teams coming here and feeling comfortable,
just enjoying themselves
and thinking we can knock this about and we can match
we don't want that at all.
You need a team of players that are gonna walk out there and a fan base behind them that are gonna, every time a team comes down, they're going to be looking at that fixture list and going, we need to go to Cardiff this weekend. That's how it needs to be.
Well, that was another point I really enjoyed about the bits I've seen of Brian Barry Murphy's interview so far. He said that one of the main things he's trying to implement into the players is the fact that they want to be representing the club and the fan base, giving them a reason to, really enjoy coming and supporting the club. Do you know what I mean? And they're representing us on that pitch, not to sound corny, but that's what we want at the end of the day.
It's the basics, isn't it? It's the bare minimum of what you expect from you playing for a football club like Cardiff City.
Yeah.
Okay, well we're not gonna go on and on. I think what we'll start doing with these pods is being quite short and sweet to keep the viewers entertained. We have three kind of themes that we want to talk about on this one. And the first one is Barry Murphy as a manager, what we think and expect. Also talk about the early expectations for next season in competitions and the fact we'll have a South Wales derby with Newport now. I never thought we'd ever go in.
No.
That's
exciting in itself, isn't it?
Of course. And then, of course, I know Anis Abraham, he who shall not be named, will be excited about that.
Yes, for sure.
And then, of course, the news around the club potentially being sold, which is massive. So let's just start off with Barry Murphy. And I would like to say something we did kind of touch on just a minute ago is what we've seen just in this week or two. I never saw, I don't know if this is part of the comms team as well, but I haven't seen no type of footage like I saw yesterday of Barry Murphy with the team. Never seen him with Rizza, never saw him with Bullet or any of the other managers of the last 3-4 years. The way he was on the training field, the way he was speaking to the players, the way they were really trying to, it just, I don't know, it was, it just really hit me. Like, I don't know if any of you saw that.
Oh, no doubt. And he alluded to it himself, as in there was like a bit of a recap kind of interview with him. And he said, with his own admission, he said, like, I am a bit full on, it's very hands on, but it's what he's going to demand of the players. It reminded me a little bit of Bella's, who in the sense of he's going to be relentless, and that's how he wants them to perform. That's how he wants it to translate onto the pitch. So for me so far, from what I've seen, which is we haven't seen a lot, but it's all positive signs so far. Like I really like the way he seems to be operating, seems to be carrying himself. You know, it's contagious, isn't it? It's contagious. I think it can only be a good thing for us. You know,
he comes across as a good talker.
Yeah,
and I think hopefully it'll be quite open and honest as a manager. I feel like one thing this set of fans in particular likes is a manager that sort of gets fans on side.
Yeah,
because we've seen managers over the years have sort of had the cold shoulder with fans and they're almost dismissing.
It's never worked out, has it?
No.
You
think
ne-
sort of
The
turn.
one that we thought was a prick who it worked out for.
No, it just doesn't work, does it? But like you said, with him being a good talker, and it's not in a sense of, I know what you're saying, and it's not in a sense of, for want of a better term, he's not like he's a Billy bullshitter either. It's not like all like fully media trained, saying all the buzzwords. It's literally, he's just trying to get exactly how he wants, his fingerprints on exactly how he wants this identity to be filtered into the team, filtered into the club in general, to represent us on that pitch. So,
and I really hope that this is the one. This is the one that Vincent Tan has finally found that one, because, you know, if you look at it from what it is, okay, yeah, he's been involved in some great, squads, let's say, of managing. Coming into this, he's just like Rizza, you know, not much experience. But he does sound positive.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm quite pleased with the appointment, because I was surprised that he hasn't picked up a job in the Football League already, because he's been touted for loads. He's
been linked to a lot,
for probably the last 3 or 4 years, and obviously he's got
he's
plenty of coaching experience in terms of being part of the City group. He spent time around Pep Guardiola, which I can't think of a manager that's come from, or a coach that's come from that setup and hasn't performed to some level.
Yeah, definitely.
Like Arteta, Maresca at Chelsea. Maresca obviously done a job in the EFL before taking the Chelsea job, so I think there's no reason why fans shouldn't get behind him, and he will, like you said, have an identity and a way of wanting to play, and will expect the players to stick to that, which should be exciting for fans, because if it comes off and you're winning most games, most weekends, this fan base will get behind you.
Yeah.
From as soon as we said about the work rate and what he expects and the intensity, straight away a player came to mind of me who I thought, I don't know how, I'm excited to see if he's involved. I don't know. Do any of you, if any players come to mind with you?
I know exactly what you're saying, and he jumped into my mind when I heard him saying the other day about how there's players here at the club, was his words. There's not verbatim, but around the sense of there's players here at this club that I feel like there's no ceiling, there's no limit. I want them to believe there's no limit to what they can achieve. And
I think he was talking.
I think he was talking. He's got there's obviously, we know there's a handful of players there, but you've got your likes of Ruben, where if he can get him in, buying into the way he wants him to play, the way he wants to essentially transform him as a player, physically, mentally, you know, we know the sky's the limit, but then, you know, we hope the sky's the limit, but it's whether the proof is in the pudding.
Ben, I know you've got your opinions on this player. What do you think?
Well, it surprised me the other day that they put out the videos of the fitness tests, and he was top of.
That surprised me more than anything.
Was that the bleep test?
The bleep
this
test.
is nothing against him. I think he's a brilliant footballer.
Yeah.
But he's never come across to me as someone who was a runner.
No.
I never thought, when they were predicting it, I thought the players were taking the piss.
I think,
to be honest with you, because they asked the players first, didn't they? Who's going to win it today? Because they had like a little, they got the little camera set
They
up.
all say Carl.
And there was at least, say they asked 20, there was at least 5 or 6 that said Ruben. It might be more. And I was like you said, I couldn't imagine that.
He's always struck me, I think, as more of a luxury player.
Yeah.
That you have in a squad that you say
short bursts.
You are the best player on this field. You show why, and we'll carry you in the run-in.
Yeah.
But if he can add that bit of, it's hard to say. I'm not going to say he's not hard working, but I don't know whether he's been at a football club over the last 4 or 5 years since he's broke in under Mick McCarthy, where he's probably worked under, what was it, 5 managers at that point.
Yeah.
Like, there's no consistency there with him.
And to be for his defence,
there's no.
That's obviously must have been difficult.
He's been a young player through all that, so that development and whatever. Like, we don't see him day to day. We don't know what he's like. No. We don't know what else has stunted that growth. But one thing is for sure, I think if he cannot perform in League One and be one of the best players in this league, then maybe he's not what we expect him to be. Because I never want to put too much pressure on players, but if he can't perform at this level after in the Championship, he was, he had moments of absolute brilliance, but was never consistent enough.
And like as you said, it was only moments, wasn't it? It was only moments. We can see
those moments need to turn into regular
He needs to be like
he needs to grab it by the scruff of the neck.
Goals, assists. He needs to be up there, ranking. And that's if he chooses him to play. But even if he doesn't choose him to start, and he looks at him as a luxury player to go out and do that, if you can't be a luxury player in League One, mate, and we're talking about, and we don't, I feel like people have put that pressure on him as well, but people have always spoken of him as being this, links to move. He performed best in the Premier League around good players, this type of stuff.
Yeah, it's like a way that it hasn't really been proven yet. It's only sort of it's only on potential and things like that. But I mean, if we can get, he's got a big appetite for developing players from what he's said so far, the manager. So if he can implement that in developing the players we've already got there, the core of the young players we've got there, including Ruben, then we've got reasons to be really optimistic. But we're just really hoping that he can kick on this year. With the likes of his brother. His brother played.
See him more.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot of Joel this year, and Isaac Davis. I'd love to see that from a personal point of view. We've got there's other young players there as well that we don't tend to mention a lot of the fact that Ollie Tanner's only still really young. Do you know what I mean? He's still how many years he's only been professional? 2-3 years. So I think he wants to get a hold of these young players and really mould them into his philosophies.
I don't think as well, like looking at the youngsters, I don't think I've seen a time at Cardiff where there has been so much hope and like kind of optimism around so many young players.
Yeah,
I remember like the days where you had Ledley, Ramsey, and they were like,
it was like a conveyor belt.
You had James Collins, Gabadon, and they were all young.
Ernie.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
And we've been desperate for it, haven't we? There's been years gone by where we've had good squads, or we've had good starting 11s, and we've been busting for an academy product to be dropped into there. Give so-and-so a chance, and it just, for one reason or another, that hasn't been the case. Whereas now, we've pretty much got the bulk of the squad are probably going to be academy products.
I suppose you've got to find that balance.
You've got to strike a balance.
With us, we're going to want to be competing at the top of League One, and I think you do need a mix. You can't expect for all these young players to all.
No, we got to have a bit of experience in there,
week out. But like I said, there's plenty of young players that can do a part this season, and with a manager that has spent a lot of time working in sort of youth football and developing players, there's no one better, I think, that we could have got that would have been available to help these players develop. And I hope Ruben is one of them. I hope he really, because he's on the periphery now, I think, of he's kicking to that point where he's more or less a senior figure in the team.
Yeah, of course.
Not far off, but it's a difficult one because I don't want to pile the pressure on him because
we all want him to perform.
For me, he's part of a group of players that we're really either going to see go one way or the other, really, under Brian Barry Murphy. Do you know what I mean?
Well, just on before we go to the next thing, really. How are you looking at his plan and maybe the club as well? Are we looking at something where we're just trying to get to promotion? Are we looking at a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan? What do any of you know, or do you have any ideas of what you think this will be?
It's difficult to say now because how long has a manager lasted. What we had 12 managers. In
Yeah,
40
and whatever
years, so
contract they've had, like I tried to be quite optimistic about the fact that they give him a 3-year contract. I sort of thought to myself, does that feel like a bit more like long-term planning? It's obviously more long-term than giving someone 6 months or a year just to see how they go. But in my mind, I'm hoping it is more of a long-term thing. But
like we said at the start, this season's the perfect time to hit that button in terms of reset. If you're gonna try a project and try and build a long-term plan, then you've got a manager he should be busting to prove people wrong, because this is his first, bar being a Rochdale for a stint where he played some decent football. I know they got relegated, but we're also a club that weren't in a great position.
And he had a long finish playing himself at the time. Do you know what I mean?
I'm sure he would have learned a lot from that, but this is his first and could be his last go at getting a managerial job, because you know what football is like. Like, he could be, you never know, 6 months down the line he could be out the door and we're looking for someone else again. But hopefully this is the start of...
Do you feel this optimism was here when Errol came in?
No.
Not at all?
I think it was...
I felt there was some optimism though, wasn't it?
It ended... I think he sort of brought... From my point of view, he sort of brought me round, to, in the fact that he had his own sort of touch on the team. He brought in the two Greeks that he'd worked with before. They became like, a focal point of the team in a way. A lot of people weren't sold on him, but I liked the fact that he'd worked with them before.
But me and you were Greek.
We got our connections, don't we? We got our connections. But then. Yeah, I don't know.
Not our loyalties.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But no, I just felt like he was bringing us round to a degree. But as you're saying, it was the initial optimism. I don't think we felt with the last few managerial appointments. But going back to his own words with Brian Barry Murphy, he said that this role fit. He felt like it sort of fit the profile he was really excited to work in, and he felt like he was the perfect candidate to really kick on with this group and with this club. So, I mean, it felt like a bit of a win-win from what he was saying, and the process was totally different to, in this appointment. Don't know whether it's just, again, rose-tinted glasses, but it does feel like the process was different in naming the manager this time.
More patience?
I think so. I don't think it was as rushed. I don't think it was as rushed at all this time.
Well, you could say he was patient, so it could be the fact they went for other options and they didn't want to come to the club. But
maybe.
But
the rose-tinted glasses were
the way we are looking at him as sort of a project manager, he could also be looking at this club as a stepping stone.
Stepping stone, yeah.
And he could think, if I do well with these, I get them promoted first time of asking. There'll be and we play some good football. There'll be clubs in the championship that'll look at me and think, well,
he's got a point to prove. They all got points to prove, and they're all doing it for a purpose. We're not talking 100 years ago when you're playing for your club because you're playing locally. Like these people all got their motives of doing it. But why not be the type of instead of looking for other championship clubs, you go to the championship with Cardiff City,
and
take us further.
Yeah.
So are we happy with him then at the moment? Like are we optimistic? Yeah.
I am definitely. Yeah. A point I wanted to make as well, boys. I don't know. Again, it might not really mean a lot to the people watching, but a little bit I read up on the background with him. I noticed there hasn't been a lot said in the media about it. I did read it on a.
You found some.
I read it up and then I dug a little bit deeper, and one thing I found out was his father, Jimmy Barry Murphy, is one of, if not the most recognisable and most successful names in Gaelic football. He was a dual player, so he played hurling and Gaelic football itself. So within the Gaelic games, he's one of the biggest success stories in the Hall of Fame. So I know how much my father has influenced my life in all aspects.
Yeah, of course.
Let alone a sporting sense. So to me, my personal opinion, I think he's going to be...
It's in his blood.
It's in his blood. He's a born winner. It doesn't always translate. Of course it doesn't. But I just, from my point of view, how successful his father was, I think, it's going to have an effect on how he is motivated, how he how much of a leader he is, because his father had an extensive coaching career as well. So from my point,
you take bits out.
You're bound to.
You've got the sport itself, whatever the sport is, but you will take out traits from all sorts.
And you know yourself. We've spoken about it before about our fathers. How much of an influence, we've been lucky enough to be close with our dads throughout our lives. I don't know how close he is with his dad, but from a sporting sense, he's got to take. There's got to be something there that's really.
Yeah. No, I agree.
There's got to be something there within him. That's got to be a massive, massive factor, I think.
Yeah.
It's the number one sport in Ireland for a start. So, it's for someone to be that successful in that sport for that length of time.
I agree.
Yeah, I think you've got to be optimistic with it in terms of, I know he hasn't got much of a track record of being the main man at the football club, but his credentials as a coach and where he's worked and who he's worked under previously.
Yeah.
And you look at, like I said earlier, that core of coaches that have come through that sort of City group setting and what they've gone on to do, and they've just got each of those coaches or managers, whatever you want to call them, have got their identity and how they want to play, and they've set up well. I haven't yet to see a manager from that sort of setup do badly.
No.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like he's an exact like carbon copy either. It's not like Maresca plays exactly like Arteta, and it's not like either of them play exactly like Pep. It's just you take bits along the way, and it's like they are so steadfast on having a identity within what they play, a culture within the club, culture within the team. It's building that winning mentality at the end of the day.
Pitch, is it?
No, winning mentality around the whole club. So
that's not us saying that Cardiff are going to play like Manchester
no,
City
definitely not.
this season,
No, definitely not. No, it's not.
It's having that.
But we
like,
could. Never know.
it's like, but it's just having that, like you said, identity and understand. Because I don't know how many times I've watched Cardiff over the last 4 or 5 years and how different each game is. There's just no.
You never know what 11's going to be picked from one week to the next, which has been like sort of exciting in a way. But then at the other end of the pit, you think there's no continuity. There's there's no. It's not continuous in how they play in, and it doesn't give anyone a traction really. Whereas he just sounds to me that he's very technical and tactical minded, and he said himself about progressive and aggressive football. So I think we are gonna see a style.
It takes time to get it right as well. Of course. You can't expect them to. Obviously, they've got these pre-season games coming up. You can't expect them to walk into that first game against Peterborough in August and start pinging the ball about and playing them off the park, because it's going to take time for ideas to bed in. Things are going to go wrong. Mistakes are going to be made. But I think it's difficult, but that's the point where you've got to bite the bullet a bit and just be like, right, we'll stick with it until it starts to develop, because it's only through trial and error that these sort of patterns of play or the style that you want to play is going to develop.
Yeah, I agree.
I did like that point he made, mind, that he said about pre-season. He said, well, I want the players to know, from the offset that it's not always going to go our way. So they're going to try and play a certain way, but he wants them to be malleable and adapting as well. In, this league's a rough and tough league. It's going back to the old school a little bit, which I think in ways will suit some of the players, namely like players like Salic.
Yeah.
He's got that robustness about him. I'm praying to God that we keep him, because he's got that old school element to him, where he gets stuck in. He'll lean on him. He's aggressive. He's physical. So if we can build that sort of throughout the team, I think it's only going to stand us in good stead. That aggression and that progression within the team.
Probably missed through the squad. There's a handful of players over the last few. Someone like Joe Rolls, for example. Like I was surprised that he been left.
Yeah, I thought he would have been part of it, to be honest with you.
I thought he would have been a good player in League One and has got that bit of bite about him in midfield, but obviously he's had discussions and he's not part of the plans. But I think you need a mix as well of just those players that can, get stuck in a bit.
It is a shame.
You need it.
Yeah, it is a shame. That I thought that would have been the kind of player in amongst, like you said, in amongst that youth, there would have been the profile, do you know what I mean? And still having that sort of the Cardiff City identity coming throughout. But we'll see.
So we have next topic really. We've kind of been jumping on it anyway. The early expectations for next season in competitions though, and the fact that we will be having a South Wales derby with Newport County. How are you feeling, boys?
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I think it's the first time we'll play in a competitive fixture since 1988. I think.
In a competitive fixture?
I think so, unless I've got that wrong.
Wow. I'm sure we've done the FAW over in the 90s or so. I know we've had a lot of friendlies.
I might have been wrong there, but...
Yeah, 98 maybe.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a long
and
time.
it's literally just up the road, you know? Yeah. I'm really excited.
To be fair, it was one I was hoping that they would get, because obviously we don't have the game with Swansea this year, but it'd be nice to have that local derby.
Yeah.
It'll only be the one game, but the only shame I thought for me is the fact that we're playing it at the Cardiff City Stadium and not down in Newport, because I would have preferred to go down there. I think it would have been a better
atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day,
realistically, you're probably going to get 5,000-6,000 across the road in that stadium by the time the Newport fans travel. Like, I know it's not far travel, but on a Tuesday night, if you took that 5,000-6,000 down Newport, packed out, the atmosphere would have been really good. But
it would have been jumping.
To be honest, I don't know. I think you might be because it's not even league, it's competition. But I don't know. You might be surprised. You might get a lot of people who want to go to that fixture.
I suppose it depends on how the season starts as well.
And the fact that we haven't got the South Wales derby, the fact that Wrexham are playing Swansea, we feel left out.
Yeah,
I think people will be like, no, let's show up. Come on, let's show up and let's.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that does end up being like a big, big turnout. Because as you said, it's been a long old time since we played Newport. So I mean, it was it's totally different in it being in that different competition as well. It does open up different avenues. It does open up different kind of worms. Is it going to be a sort of cup where players are used? Is it more of a development kind of thing, or are we going flat out? I would think in that game, I would hope anyway that we go full tilt and we go at them.
Listen, obviously, 100%. We've got to focus on league and getting promotion. But I'm sorry, also, like, we should be playing every game to fucking win, and let's take some fucking silverware if we can.
Yeah.
And the thing with our competition as well is everyone will look at it and think, I'm not really interested, but the closer you get to that trip to Wembley,
oh god,
and then everyone starts to get excited.
Imagine
I don't care
trips to Wembley this year.
Exactly, I don't care what trophy we're playing for. If
oh god, we'd be bouncing.
Yeah,
imagine we had like double bubble, going up.
The double,
going up and winning a cup. Can you imagine?
BTEC double.
Do you know what I mean? It'd be fantastic. But then, we were at one point getting bored of Wembley because we were there so much at one point. It seems like a lifetime ago now. No, I know. Busted to get back, but we'll see, boys.
Okay. Another developments that we've had over the last week or two, which has been really fascinating to see, because I thought this guy I genuinely thought we would never hear him talk about it. I've always felt with Gareth Bale, I've never heard him speak about Cardiff.
No.
I thought it would have been a better chance of him going with Modric down to Swansea than Cardiff.
Well, when I heard about that, I was just like,
of course,
holding my head in my hands. I was just thinking, oh God, why is Modric going there? Do you know what I mean? Real jealous. I got to be honest with you, real jealous. But then I remember seeing a clip years ago of they have the classic shirts, don't they?
Yeah.
It was like with BT or something like that. And that was the first time really I heard him speak about, his uncle playing for the club and his affiliation. His uncle played for Cardiff.
Who?
Gareth Bale.
Oh, I think it was Modric. What about Swansea?
No. So, like, Bale, like I said, he's never really spoke that much about it. But that was we sort of clinging on to that.
Was he a Bale?
No, his surname's not Bale. I can't think of his name now. But
I got these like linen shorts on and they're chomping me up. Sorry, people.
But but to hear him speak so publicly about it, and it was like he was on the F1. It was the F1 film Red Carpet, wasn't it?
Most random of places. Like, it's not even like he's in a football capacity, and it's like he was. Maybe even that's why he was so comfortable with speaking it, thinking I can blend it here, not realizing
how giddy do we get about it? Do you know what I mean? It's like I was thinking about it, this past week, and it's like who could be involved. Do you know what I mean? You don't
Well,
know. You don't know what sort of circles he was in. You know, that 6 months of him going to LA might end up being a bit of a blessing for us, because you don't know who's involved in that consortium. You don't know who's gonna get. You know, we might have Ron Burgundy involved.
But yeah, well, yeah, there could
know?
be some sort of movie style,
You just
you know,
don't
like
know.
you've got
You
with
just don't
Wrexham
know.
and other stuff. I don't think he would make a joke of it
No,
or
no.
turn it into some sort of,
No.
like you see, you know, the Disney club up north, let's say, although I love what they've done, truthfully.
Yeah.
But I was thinking straight away, like, Bale obviously himself is not going to take this. He doesn't have that kind of money. But, who is he going to bring in, and who is going to be involved, sorry.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say, whether he knows much about running a club, he's another one who's a born winner.
Born winner.
You know, and he wouldn't put his name to something after the success he's had. I don't think he'd put his name to something if he didn't have that kind of backup that he thinks.
And he seemed so open in talking about it as well. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't. He's always been quite a quiet bloke with the media. I know he always sort of got on with his work when he was playing, but apart from like the little digs with England and the Euros and things like that, but apart from that, he just seemed like he was a lot more comfortable and a lot more like, yeah, this is what, I am interested in this.
Yeah.
Obviously it's my hometown club, and this and that. So I think another reason for us to be optimistic and positive. I know, of course, it's not done. We haven't even had a second bid yet, but it's another reason for us to be positive about the season.
I think that's what I was shocked with when I seen the interview he done at the red carpet event. The fact that he's come out and openly spoke about it.
Yeah.
And that gives me the sense of they've had some sort of positive discussion.
It's for real, isn't it?
He wouldn't have stood there in front of that camera.
No.
And took that because there'd be someone with him who would have just said, "You're not asking it," or "I'm not answering it." The fact that he felt comfortable enough to stand there and openly admit the plans that they had shows that there's a level of interest there, at least. Whether that comes off, because it seems still like a bit of a difficult situation. I know they've put a £40 million bid in, and well, I'm not a football businessman, but it seems in terms of where we're at a football club, just being relegated at League One, I feel like
with everything else that's happened,
and my thought process looking at it is, I don't think there's any better time now for Vincent Tan to cut his losses,
of course,
because that consortium will come in and pay you over the odds, if anything, to take hold of the club.
And obviously we had the club's response, which at first was just like, what? But I look back now and I think, well expected. Like that is something typically they would do. But last season, and what I've said, since going back down the City and really following them, is because of the Tan situation, we've just had nobody local. And I honestly, right, you can bring any millionaire or multi-millionaire, right? I would have been happy to take any multi-millionaire who was Welsh, who had no clue about football, but was passionate about his club.
Yeah.
To have Gareth fucking Bale as the double whammy, the local guy, it's like...
When we met up the other week, we were speaking about the owner, and this was before this.
Before it even,
And I said, as much as people dislike Tan and everything he's done hasn't been brilliant, he's at least... to some senses, we are stable as a football club. You look at other football clubs are in a lot worse state than we're in.
Yeah.
But the thing that we're missing out on is just a footballing brain.
Football people we want involved.
They're businessmen.
Yeah.
But there's no footballing brain there. But I also thought of, if we do get new owners, you've got to be careful of who comes in, because Tan could go and you could end up with someone like Chansey. You see how much of a mess Sheffield Wednesday are in this season. Players and in, they're noticing because they're not getting paid. You could end up with someone like that, but this is the absolute dream scenario for Cardiff City. Having Gareth Bale as I know he'd just be a mouthpiece, a spokesperson.
Exactly
the front of it.
But you look at some of these American consortiums, one that jumps to my mind is Birmingham, and I think that's a perfect ownership model. Yeah, they come across as a bit cringy and... like these American businessmen, like
they Americanise it, don't
and they didn't get off to a great start themselves, because they sacked Eustace when they were in the playoffs, brought Rooney in, and then they nearly got relegated. But I feel like they've took that on board, they've learned, and I honestly think Birmingham will be pushing playoffs again this year in the Championship and won't be far off Premier League. So
wouldn't surprise
you've
me at all.
got that bit. You don't want to get too excited because
No,
you
of
don't know
course.
if it's definitely going to get across the line, but that's something we could be looking at within the next year.
I think the thing that's always just like been the kind of final nail in the coffin in terms of, like, I've had the same worry and thought of who would be here, but the thing that's always been my nail in the coffin is we are never going to have great footballing brains. I'm not saying that, you know, Brian Barry Murphy as a manager is not going to be the right man for this job right now, but from speaking to people in the world of professional football, nobody wants to go near Vincent Tan. Like, he has tainted us massively.
Like, I don't blame him. Or like, as much you could have the best manager in the world, and there's only so much they can do if people above them are not pulling their weight in terms of running the football club properly. Like, look down to just transfers, like the amount of money we've wasted on players over the last few years, and there's just, like I said, zero consistency throughout the football club.
So do you feel that this is not a reset unless there's a new regime in?
I don't think that we would have long-term success without a different ownership.
So so even if we get promoted now and we do fantastic over the next season, I know I'll still have my feeling of Tan just wanting it to change. But we do know there's a big, large population of the club who follow him anyway, who will be like, look, see.
I think you need that change, especially with how football in this country is going. There's so many good ownership models, and you can't be left behind the times now. And guess
you got to move with it now.
Like, you need to be run properly. To the 2 seasons we had success, I think were just off more or less blind luck more than anything else. Like, we had Malky Mackay, who took us up the first time, and it's the only thing I feel like he's achieved in football.
Yeah.
Like, after that, he hasn't done anything else. No. And we had Warnock, who is renowned for, but you know, with Warnock, you're going to have a 2-year spell before he runs dry.
Well, he said himself as well, with our group of players, he said it was one of his biggest achievements because he just got that togetherness together, got the group together and had that togetherness rather, and you know, it was almost like a bit of a miracle, really.
And we've been incredibly unlucky as a football club at points as well, with Mackay left under what was difficult circumstances, but obviously couldn't be kept on.
No,
so
but if he kept on, we probably would have stayed at back that year. And then with Warnock that season,
and you had Salah and that whole situation. We miss out on a striker there.
Yeah, we could have kept. We were cursed.
It was like it's difficult. Sometimes you do look at the club and just think we are destined not to
It does
succeed,
seem like it seems like every football club seems to have these ebb and flows and ups and downs, but we do feel like, you know, it's been an exceptional roller coaster really so far. Being, you know, in our lifetime, being Cardiff City fans, it's been very, very rocky and turbulent in times, and we've had massive heights as well.
So at any other club really of the standard or expectations they have. Yeah. Is there any clubs out there that have smelt of roses in the last 20 years consistently?
No.
Look at Liverpool. You know, the days of Roy Hodgson and
I know.
You know, Milan Baros and Vlad.
David Ungog.
Yeah. You know, it's like let's think like these teams. Chelsea now, you know, all right, they might be rebuilding, but Chelsea over the last 10 years, dire, and before their great run with Mourinho, they were dire then as well.
Well, like 18 months ago, it just seemed like everything was going badly for them, and now Chelsea now. But then everything now seems to be taking an upturn, and everyone's sort of like envious of them, those top clubs. So you just don't know what's around the corner. But the meat we have got on the bones at the moment as Cardiff City fans, I think we've got more reasons to be positive than we have to be negative.
I just truly believe, and I've always believed, that as a capital city, a great city, a great surrounding area of the valleys, you know, like such rich history. We are a footballing nation, I do believe now. You look at Wales rugby, we are a footballing nation. We have produced one of the best footballers in the world. Some people would argue he is one of the greatest of our generation. You know, Cardiff boy, like we should be a household Premier League team. Yeah, you know, and
there's no reason why a capital city club shouldn't be one of
Rangers and Celtic would
like
be if they
you
joined
look
us.
at all other capital cities, not just in the UK, across the world, capital city clubs do well, and we should be one of them. And I think that if you had that long-term planning and a level of consistency. Is it difficult to establish yourself in the Premier League these days? Is difficult, but
of course, yeah.
success to each club means different things. But if you've got that level of consistent success and just a bit of ambition and planning, you've got, like you said, a big catchment area then of young footballers. You want footballers in this area and I've spoke to Bellamy about it before. You want footballers in this area to be looking at that club and thinking, I want to wear that shirt.
That's where I want to be.
That's where I want to play. And
at the moment, how long haven't they?
Yeah, it doesn't.
No,
it doesn't feel
We've
like
got a hell of a base to work off, haven't we? Really.
But we have never had good owners over the last 50 to 100 years. Really, have we?
They've had good moments, haven't they? But it's never been, as Ben said, a consistent. You know,
the 60s, 70s, whatever, 70s, 80s, they say was probably worse than it is now, right? And but we never produced worldies like we did back then, you know. And I do believe that like this could be the time where we actually can become a great football club. And I just love how optimistic this conversation is, because last season it just seemed, even the podcast I done, and I was speaking to people, I thought we were dropping down to League Two, and who's to say that we might not? But
you never know, do you? Never know. But
Brian Barry Murphy, the optimism of League One and the quality we have, and like we've just said, the talks of ownership change with someone like Gareth Bale involved. What's not to be optimistic about?
Yeah, you've got to be optimistic. I think that's just is a sense of worry with me, because you can get too optimistic about Cardiff and
get a bit too giddy.
Everything will come
after 6-7 games.
Yeah, we could be sitting here next week and Bale and the consortium have bought a different football club and moved on. But I'm really hoping that they can get that, because the atmosphere and buzz down there, if they can get that first game of the season,
can't imagine what it'd be like.
I think they'll change everything as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think they will listen to the fans, and they will change the fan set at the stadium.
It doesn't necessarily need to be. You can win these fans over with simple like those seats, those red seats. You go in there and change them week one. That's just an easy win for the fan base.
Of course it is.
But I think the fan base would be absolutely buzzing, and you'd get a couple of thousand more down that first home game, just thinking, Bale could be there, or it's just that feeling.
Where's he
of
living
optimism.
now? Is he in Wales?
I think he's back in Wales.
I'd imagine him to be the type of guy.
Yeah.
He's a footballer at the end of the day. All right, we're going to Wales Golf Madrid. You're a big golfing fan, but I could imagine him being in the box. Most weeks.
Oh yeah, he'd be there most. I think with friends and family. He got like a close group of mates that have been his mates for a long time. They're all still playing
down the pub,
golf. They're all still playing golf in Whitchurch. They had to make their own team there, part of the club. And he's got a close contingent of Cardiff-based friends and family. So as you said, I think he'd be there most weeks, to be honest.
So and if you've got that board as well, and you've got someone like Gareth Bale on the board, and you've got a consortium that's hopefully investing, and that attracts a different sort of player as well.
Oh God, yeah. The pull would be.
You look at Wrexham, the players that are interested in going there just because of the story and wanting to be involved in a club that's got to win in the right direction. Same with Birmingham as well. If you've got that set up and just that optimism around the club.
Well, that's the argument we have about why players won't come here. Straight away you will have players that just want to come because it's not in the Kim Jong-un regime, but for it to be something like Bale is just it's like
the cherry on the cake, because we've a lot of the fan base have been crying out for new owners for a long time, and it's, from my point of view, it's always been a bit like, be careful what you wish for, because he has invested a lot of money, there's no doubt about that. But going back to your point, Ben, little changes do make a big difference, and I think if someone like Bale and that consortium come in, the little changes they could make straight away to create an even bigger buzz would just be fantastic. It would.
I think that's just
it would blow it up.
The dream scenario on it, because you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Whereas with other owners, you don't know what's coming.
Do you think Bale has recently done this since the Modric thing? Do you think he thought, I could do this, I could have a bit of this? Oh, Modric, how did you do this? What made you do this? And how have you worked it? I'm going to do my own thing. Do you know what I mean?
It seems like a business decision that's happening with a lot of people, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
it's a
especially
way,
in terms of American ownership
There
models.
seems to be more and more clubs around the world. You know,
'Cause
the American sports.
they know as
people
well.
are getting
if
involved
you can,
in.
if you can do well and get a team established in the Premier League, how much money you're making every year
Yeah.
in terms of, especially if they went and bought Cardiff. And I'm not saying if they come in and bought us and they'd shoot us to the Premier League straight away, but if you can build to that point, the profit you're making off that.
But I
is
don't understand why someone hasn't come in like that.
It just feels like there's so
because
much
this is
potential, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
So
is.
much
It is.
potential.
It is a sleeping giant.
Yeah, feels like there's so much potential. As you both alluded to, you know, being the capital city. You know, that's just one point of it. It's just there's so much
It's
potential.
not just the capital city, is it? It's the valleys. It's the
it's
towns
everything.
around it.
You've such a base
seen
to work
it
on.
to some extent as well. In the 2 seasons we spent in the Premier League,
Mm.
I know you see it. You'll see it with every club. But
Even with the red sellout, it was still popping.
it sells
Yeah.
out every week,
Yeah.
and that's purely because you're playing Premier
Man
League
United,
teams.
yeah.
The big boys of the country are coming down. That's what people want to see.
Mm.
Like, as difficult, like most fans like us will be there, whether it's League One or Premier League.
Yeah,
but some
definitely.
fans and some football fans will look at it and think, I'm not going down there to watch them play League One football when, you know, but that's the mindset.
Well, we live in a time when finance is hard as well, and
Yeah.
people work weekends, and people are not going to go down there if they've got an owner like Vincent Tan, who is number one, just kind of not doing the job he's supposed to. And then also the other part of why people used to go down was because of the atmosphere and the fun. And when you've got inside the stadium as well, you know, you can't sing, you can't stand up, you can't do this, you're away from the away fans. So you've got 2 lumps of people who are just not going anymore, you know.
It's a
And that's
disconnect, isn't it?
understandable.
It seems like a big disconnect that has been growing and growing and growing, and hopefully, you know,
Hopefully it'll change.
hopefully we've got change ahead.
Well, guys, thank you very much for coming. Back again next week. Are we going to do this? Are we going to be consistent with this now for the fans? That's the question.
That sounds good to me, mate.
Yeah? I know you're a busy guy as well, but I think...
I will be out when I can be.
Of course. And I've really enjoyed it. Like, I think we bounced off each other quite well. I hope the fans liked it.
Covered a lot of big points as well, I think.
Yeah.
From what we've got to work off so far.
It's still very early as well. Now.
Yeah,
like we
you
could
know.
be sat here.
I can't wait to see what happens next
Well,
week.
it could be
Well,
sat here
the
this
thing
time
is
next week and going, this season's going to be a nightmare. But
Yeah.
But the
you
games
never
are coming
know.
thick and fast, and they've got plenty.
Yeah.
You know, you can rectify. You know, games every 3 days now, haven't we?
Yeah, and when is that starting?
The
Next
9th.
Wednesday. Yeah.
Next what?
Next Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 9th.
Or 9th.
Is
That's
it
the
Wednesday today? No?
Yeah.
Yeah, week today then.
Should we visit on the same day of the game, or we should come back a day or 2 after and reflect?
Yeah, it could reflect after it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Potentially do maybe because they got 2 games on the bounce. I think it's either Wednesday or
Yeah, I suppose we
Wednesday,
could wait
Friday, or Wednesday,
Or
Saturday. So we could maybe
even
do it on the
following-
Sunday.
Or the Sunday. Oh, that'd be nice.
Meet up
Yeah.
meet up on the Sunday, and have a reflection on that.
We're talking at days
two
here,
s-
but we'll
the two
probably
Spain-
release these on the
Spanish
same
game.
day all the
Yeah.
time. But yeah.
We could cover the Spain trip basically because we got the 2
Yeah.
games in Spain, 9th and the 12th. So,
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
guys, thank you. Really appreciate it. I want to say a big up and a big thank you to the fans who have been messaging when's the next podcast and what's happening. We've got some announcements coming as well. We will have merch next season coming up now, and we've got a big live event with a special former Cardiff City player. We will let you know the announcements and information on that because it's going to be a Central Stand live podcast, and who knows, guys, we might all be on a panel speaking to some legends.
you never know.
How about that?
Sounds good.
Well then, till next time, see you at the stands.